I know that we all know that RFK Jr. is going to be the Secretary of Health and Human Services if he is confirmed by the Senate. But what does that role actually entail and what does he oversee? I'm going through a series of going through the president's cabinet, and we are right here on the list. The mission of the department is quite simple. It is to enhance the health and well-being of all Americans. This department oversees a lot. You probably recognize NIH, FDA, CDC, and they also do things like the Affordable Care Act, things like that. And this one department oversees about $2 trillion worth of spending a year, which is a lot considering that we only take in $4.4 trillion a year. I also found this interesting. This is probably just interesting to me, but the department also oversees the ASPR, so they deal with emergency preparedness. So for events like Hurricane Milton, they do respond, which this is why I found it interesting because we also have FEMA who responds and the Small Business Administration. So, it's just one of those responsibilities that kind of carries throughout a lot of departments. Just a fun history fact, the department was created in 1953 and actually started as the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare. So obviously now the Department of Education is separated out. The current Secretary of HHS is Xavier Becerra. And no, he's not a medical professional, he is a lawyer. I only say that because a lot of people criticize Kennedy for not being a medical professional, so you can't criticize him without criticizing the current secretary. A little bit of background about the current secretary. He was a lawyer for the mentally ill for really just about 2 years until he got involved in politics, and he's had several different roles in politics. To summarize it briefly, he was in the House of Representatives for about 25 years, so that was the most notable thing in his career, and then he was Attorney General for California after Harris left. Now let's get into Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I had to use this photo because people are doing some amazing memes with it, saying, the look you get when you eat junk food. Now let's go through some of the things he has done in his career, but I'm going to do it without all the propaganda. Probably the biggest headline that has come out of his career is how he won numerous lawsuits against Monsanto. Monsanto is the company who owns Roundup, and they found out that this man got cancer from Roundup, and a lot of people ended up coming forward that they had cancer. So it was just lawsuit after lawsuit that they won. Was the president of the Waterkeeper Alliance. He was there for over 20 years and he resigned in 2020. Under his leadership, the alliance grew to be the world's largest nonprofit focused solely on clean water. And he helped found the Children's Health Defense. He was the chairman and chief litigation counsel, but he is on leave currently. This group has focused on ending childhood health epidemics by eliminating toxic exposure. Kennedy is also a best-selling author. Probably the biggest one he's known for is The Real Anthony Fauci, which, by the way, he hasn't been sued for this book, so if there was anything false in it, I'm sure Anthony Fauci would have come with a defamation lawsuit. I want to briefly go through what he says he will do as Secretary of HHS. First and foremost, he wants good safety testing. He says, what I want is good testing, good safety testing for vaccines, good efficacy testing, so that everybody knows and can make informed consent about whether they want this product or not. And with that, it's all about informed consent. He says, my vaccination policy will not take away a vaccine from anyone who wants access to them. I bet you cannot find a person who is upset about this one. Kennedy will work to remove toxic chemicals from our food and water supply. He says, quote, we're going to lower the costs and lower the barriers and get rid of the perverse incentives and clean out the chemicals. And he will drain the swamp in the health agencies. And he will bring the health agencies back to the gold standard of science. He has talked numerous times in the past how the whole world used to look to the US as having the best science, and now they really don't. Ban pharmaceutical advertisements on TV. Fun fact, the US and New Zealand are the only countries who allow pharmaceutical advertisements, so it's about time. He talks often about not gaslighting people who have injuries from vaccines. And it's funny because the CDC website themselves say that there are risks in taking any medication, vitamin, or other supplement. Yet, a lot of people are made out to be crazy if they say they were injured from a vaccine. One last thing I want to address about Kennedy is that, yes, he is a former addict, but he's been sober for 40 years. Not only that, he says that he goes to an AA or NA meeting every single day. What better person to lead us out of an addiction crisis that's happening in this country than someone who has went through it themselves and gotten over it? But of course, let me know your thoughts about all this. Did you learn anything new? What do you think about RFK Jr. running HHS? Let me know and make sure you're following me for more.